Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's geography lesson. My name is Nomthandazo Malembe. This lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Parama Research and Development. So today, learners, we are focusing on our final revision. We will be looking at our paper 2. But before we start with our lesson, I just want us to go through our lesson objective. By the end of this lesson, learners, you should be able to identify the structure for paper 2 and also to focus on the following topics. We will be looking at your rural as well as your urban settlement. Then we're looking at your economic geography. And then lastly, we're going to look at your map work questions. So to identify the structure for paper 2, number 1, you need to know the mark allocation for your question paper, which is 150 marks, and also the duration for your paper, which is 3 hours. Your question paper consists of 2 sections, which is section A as well as your section B. Under your section A, you're going to have 2 questions, which is question 1 as well as your question 2. Under your question 1, you should expect any questions from your rural as well as your urban settlement. Then under your question 2, you should expect any question from your economic geography. Then you move to your section B. Under section B, you should expect questions from your map work. So to further break down the questions, as I've said, in section A, you will have your question 1 as well as your question 2. Under your question 1, the questions are based on your rural as well as your urban settlement. Then the breakdown of questions, you have 5 figures. Figure 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. There is your question 1. Under your figure 1.1 and figure 1.2, you should expect short objective questions. Those are your one-word answers. They may come as a multiple choice where you are given 4 responses, then you need to choose 1. Or they may come as your column A as well as your column B. With column A and column B, you are now given 2 options to choose from. And then lastly, they may come as where you need to choose the correct term in the brackets. Remember, if figure 1.1 has 7 questions, it means your figure 1.2 will have 8 questions. But altogether, your short objective questions should give you 15 marks. Then you move to the long questions, which is your figure 2.8, 1.3, 1.4, as well as 1.5. It's where you should expect your short, your medium, as well as your long questions. So in those 3 figures, your 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, you will have 1 question where you will have a paragraph question. Remember, for your paragraph question, you need 4 responses. Then the total for your question 1 is 60 marks. Then you move to your question 2, you are still on section A. Under your question 2, you should expect any question from your economic geography. Remember, when I'm saying any question, it means you shouldn't be selective when you are studying. Make sure that you study everything because you will never know which questions will the examiner be focusing on. Especially for your economic geography, because you are given some of the topics that are definitely will be there, like your agricultural product for this year. Remember, we are focusing on your sugarcane, and also we're looking at mining. We are focusing on gold mining. For those ones that you know for sure that they will be there, it's where you should try by all means to get as much as information as is possible. So under your question 2, as we are saying, economic geography, it also carries 60 marks. Your short objective, again, they will come as figure 2.1 and figure 2.2. The format is still the same. It might be a multiple choice or a column A or column B, or where you're supposed to choose from the brackets. But all in all, they are 15 short objective questions. If 2.1 has 8 questions, it means your 2.2 will have 7 questions. Then you move to the short, medium, as well as your long questions. That is your figure 2.3, 2.4, as well as your 2.5. Amongst these 3 figures, again, you will have one with a paragraph question. Then you move to your section B. When you are moving to your section B, that's where you will find your question 3. Your question 3 is based on your map work. So to further break down the map work as it carries 30 marks. You have your map skills as well as your calculation that carries 10 marks, and then that's your figure 3.1. Then your figure 3.2, it's where you should expect questions from map interpretation. Remember the focus today, we are focusing on paper 2 revision, which means when it comes to your map interpretation, you'll be interpreting questions based on your settlement and questions based on your economic. Then you have your GIS questions. Your GIS questions, they carry 8 marks. So the total will be 30 marks. So it's 60 marks from your question 1, 60 marks from your question 2, that's 120, and then 30 marks from your question 3, that is a total of 150 marks. So to begin with our exam tips, remember, this is what you're supposed to do on the day of exam when you are already seated down and ready to write. So the first thing we are saying, you need to read the instructions carefully. When we are saying read the instructions carefully, you will be given an opportunity to read the question paper. That is a 10-minute reading time. So in that 10-minute reading time, make sure that you start by reading the instructions on your page 2. Remember those instructions, they will tell you the do's as well as the don'ts of the question paper. They will also remind you what topics you should expect in your question paper. And also they will tell you which map that you will be using. And also they will be reminding you in terms of the calculations when it comes to the units. Then, as I've said, in that 10-minute reading time, make sure that you go through the question paper thoroughly from the information and instruction, then read the question 1 questions, you read the question 2, and then you read the question 3. So make sure that you utilize that 10 minutes to the fullest in going through the question paper. So now, when you are given a chance now to write, when the invigilator is saying at 9 o'clock, you may start writing. Remember, do not rush to answer. We are saying before you answer, make sure that you read the questions carefully now. From your question 1, figure 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, up to 1.5. Read the questions twice. Read it again. Sometimes you can even read the question and then translate to your own language so that you understand the question better. By the time you are answering, you will know for sure what is the examiner asking. Then number 3, you must make sure that you underline the keywords. When I'm saying underline the keywords, if the question is saying name or state, you can never write 4 lines, because state or name, you just need 1 answer. Then your action words or your action verbs, again, if the question is saying state the types of settlement, so that type of settlement is becoming your action word, so you know what you are stating. Same goes for the question when it's saying account. Account, remember, you're supposed to explain fully your account, you describe, explain, as well as suggest. That way you should give the full answer. When you're saying the full answer, you give, you motivate why are you saying that fact. Then you need to check your mark allocation. Sometimes you will lose marks because you did not check the mark allocation. When the question is saying 2 times 2, it means you need to give 2 responses that will give you 4 marks. If the question is saying 3 times 2 in the mark allocation, that's where you're supposed to give 3 responses for you to get 6 marks. So if you don't pay attention on the mark allocation, you will end up writing 1 answer where else you are supposed to write 2 or you are supposed to write 3. Then when it comes to your, and also Make sure that you study the resources in terms of the diagram, your cartoon, your infographic, as well as the case study that you are given, because each and every question, there will be that question that says, according to the infographic, describe whatsoever. So it is important that when the question is saying according to or refer to, you make sure that you study the resources that you are given, so that you can be able to identify those answers. Then, in your paragraph question, remember, you need to give 4 responses. And your paragraph question, again, you need to give a fact and then you explain that fact so that you are able to get that 2 marks fully, and then make sure that you have your 4 responses so that you can have that 8 marks. So to begin with our revision, as question 1, we said you should expect questions from your rural as well as your urban settlement. So as the figure 1.1 and 1.2, it's where you should expect questions that are your short objective questions. Remember, you can still use the knowledge from the short objective questions to prepare for your long questions. So likewise, we start by reading the instructions. The instruction is saying the various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. So choose the correct choose the answer and you write only the letter between A to D. Next to the question number, you have your 1.1.1 up to 1.1.8. So what happens in the exam, make sure that you start by writing the numbering, then you double check if your numbering is in order. Your 1.1.1 up to 1.1.8. By doing that, you're making sure that you don't skip any answer. So your question 1.1.1, the rural settlement pattern. So we are looking at the rural settlement pattern. So by now you should be able to identify how many patterns have you learned during the lesson. So the rural settlement pattern shown below, you are given the key there with the diagram. The key is the farmstead. So now you need to look at that pattern. This is a farmstead there, another farmstead here, and another farmstead, and another farmstead. So looking at our option A, you have your circular, then B, you have your nucleated, and then C, you have your dispersed, and then D, you have your linear. Remember, you are identifying this rural settlement pattern that is shown in the diagram. So 1 minute, and then after 1 minute, we will be able to do the correction. Then we move to the next question. Our option there, the rural settlement pattern that is shown below, we are looking at a dispersed. Remember, we are guided by this key, which is a farmstead. So there is one there and another one there and another one there. You can see that they are far from each other. So therefore, that pattern is a dispersed. Remember, we have 2 types of patterns, which is a nucleated when the settlements are closer together, and then the dispersed when they are far apart. And also, they have the alternative name. If you don't want to say dispersed, you can also say you're isolated. If you don't want to say nucleated, you can also say they are clustered. So looking at your circular as well as your linear, remember this is a shape and not the pattern. So you should pay attention. Is the question asking for the shape? Is the question asking for the pattern? Then we're moving right along with our second question, your 1.1.2. Nucleated rural settlement are associated with A, is it an extensive farming? B, is it a fragmented land? And then C, is it a monoculture? And then D, the use of bulky machinery. Remember, when you are doing multiple choice questions, make sure that you start by eliminating the possible answers that are incorrect. So so that you can be able to be left with one or two. Then it will be easy for you to make sense of which one is the correct one. So start by the most incorrect, you eliminate them, and then so that it can take you closer to the correct answer. So another 1 minute, and then after 1 minute, we go through our solution. Right? Looking there at our solution, as we're looking at the settlement, the nucleated rural settlement, they are associated with the fragmented land. Remember, there is a sharing of land there. So one piece of land that is shared by many people. So hence the option there is your fragmented land. Then we're looking at the extensive farming. So this is the type of farming. Remember, there's the question, it says the nucleated rural settlement. The nucleated is the pattern. So we're looking at what it is associated with. So it can never be associated with extensive farming, because extensive farming, remember, you get it mostly when there is a commercial farming. Then your monoculture, again, monoculture, we're talking about the type of farming that focuses on one crop at a time. So again, these are the most incorrect answers. And also the use of bulky machinery. Remember, they are nucleated, so meaning they are sharing the equipment, they are sharing the land. So the use of bulky machinery is also impossible. Then your next question, which is your question 1.1.3, the situation of a settlement is. So here you need to remind yourself the definition of the situation. Is it the site on which the settlement is located? B, the exact land on which the settlement is located? And then C, its location in relation to human and physical feature. Then D, the amount of money the settlement generates. Another 1 minute, and then after 1 minute, we'll be able to proceed with our solution. Right? Looking there at our solution as we are looking at the situation. Remember, that's where you're supposed to remind yourself what is a definition of a situation. Remember, we have the site and we have the situation. So you should be able to know the difference between the two. So our solution then, the situation of a settlement is its location, which is the site, in relation to the human as well as your physical features. Remember the situation for someone who wants to start farming. So you are going to the rural settlement so that you can be able to start farming. So your situation there will be the type of soil, the type, the water source, is it available, and also looking at the type of slope. So those will become your situation in terms of the physical features. Then when it comes to the human, is that area accessible? So it also a part of the human. Is that area safe or not? It's also part of the human. So the situation, we are looking at the surrounding of your site, because the site is where the settlement will be built. And then around that site, what are the features that you will need? Is it available? So then it becomes a situation. Then your 1.1.4, an economic factor. Remember, it is important again to pay attention to what factor is the question all about, because we have economic factor, we have social factor, as well as your environmental factor. So an economic factor that influences the situation of the rural settlement is, we are looking in terms of the economic a factor. So again, you have the fertile soil. Is that an economic factor? Is the microclimate, is that an economic factor? Your gentle land, is that a economic factor? Or your local market, is that a economic factor? So another 1 minute, and then after 1 minute, we will be able to proceed to the solution. Right? Looking there at our solution, as we were looking for that economic factor that will influence the situation of the rural settlement. So we are looking in terms of the local markets. Remember, the local markets is where you're going to sell your product. So as you are selling that product, it will be an income that will be generated. So therefore, it becomes an economic factor. Your fertile soil, your microclimate, your gentle land, they all become a physical factors. So therefore, our economic is D, which is your local market. Then your question 1.1.5 is or are a social factor. Remember again, it's another factor, but now which factor? We are looking at the social factor that influences the rural settlement pattern. So what is that a social factor that will influence the rural settlement pattern? Is it safety? Is it rainfall? Is it a market? Or is it a topography? Remember, we are talking about the social factor. So another 1 minute, and then after 1 minute, we will be able to proceed to our correction. Right? Looking there at our social factor that will influence the settlement pattern. So we are looking in terms of safety. So if that area is safe, it means now it will attract people to come and settle in that area. So therefore, their safety comes first, and then it becomes a social factor because it has to do with the living of the people. Then we're looking at our question 1.1.6. The settlement below can be described as, you have a diagram there, a diagram with the key. In that key, it's a farmstead. So look at the shape that has this farmstead made, and then also what causes this shape. We are looking at the lake there. So the settlement below can be described as, we are looking at the type of a rural settlement. Is that a wet point settlement that is nucleated? Is that a dry point settlement that is nucleated? Is that a wet point settlement that is dispersed? Or a dry point settlement that is dispersed? So here you need to understand the settlement pattern, and then you need to know the difference between your wet point settlement and your dry point settlement. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to work on this question, and then after 2 minutes, we will be able to proceed to the solution. Right? Girls and boys, we are looking at our settlement below that can be described as a wet point. That's number one. Why a wet point? Because we see that there is a lake in that area. A lake is one of the examples of the water sources. Remember, it can be a lake, it can be a dam, and it can be a wind pump. So that is nucleated. As you can see that these farmsteads are grouped together, or they are closer together. So therefore, it's a wet point settlement that is nucleated. So let us look at option B, your dry point settlement that is nucleated. Remember the dry point, that's where there is a river in that area, and then there's the people, they will choose to build away from that river, especially in the higher ground, so that they can avoid being flooded. So as I've said, you need to know the difference between your wet point as well as your dry point settlement. So where there is the water is scarce, so there will be a water source. Then the people will gather around that water source so that they can get the water easily. Then your 1.1.7, the shape, we are looking at the shape now. Remember, we've said there are types of shapes and there are types of pattern. So you should pay attention. The question is saying the shape of the settlement below was influenced by the sea. As you can see, there is a sea and then there is the shape of the settlement. Is it a circular? Is it a star? Is it a semicircular? Or is it a linear? So remember, we are looking at the shape of the settlement. So 1 minute, and then after 1 minute, we move to the solution. Right, grade 12, as we were looking at that type of shape of a settlement below that was influenced by the sea. So it becomes a semicircular. Remember, we cannot build anything along the sea. So we can all move around the sea, but we can't build so that it can be round or a circular. So therefore, it becomes a semicircular. Then, our question 1.1.8. This question is a 2-in-1 question. You need to make a combination first, and then you can choose from A, B, C, and D. So what is the question asking? The physical factor, again, it's another factor. To be specific, they are asking for the physical factor. So the physical factors that influence the shape of the settlement. As you can see, that the shape of a settlement is linear. So now, what are the 2 physical factors that has influenced this type of the shape? Is it a narrow valley? Is it a perennial river? Your soil fertility, as well as your gentle land. So you are given a key again, it's a farmstead. As you can see, the shape of the farmstead, it is linear. Then you are given a road, but is a road a physical factor or what another factor? Then we are looking at the river. Is the river a physical factor again or is another factor? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes so that you can be able to make your combination, because you need 2 physical factors that have influenced this type of a shape. So 2 minutes, and then after 2 minutes, we will proceed to the solution. Right, girls and boys, as you can see that our combination is Roman figure 1 as well as Roman figure 2. So what happens is the narrow valley. Remember, we are looking for the physical factors. So your narrow valley as well as your perennial river. Perennial river, this is a permanent river. And also your narrow valley, a valley is a physical factor. Then let's look at your soil fertility, which can be a human-made. Then we're also looking at the gentle land. It's also a physical factor, but that can also be made to be gentle. So therefore, our narrow valley as well as our perennial river. Again, the question was asking about these 2 factors that can influence the shape. So you need to understand that the shape is going to be a linear shape. In order for this shape to take a line, it's because they are moving along with the river, and also the valley is becoming narrower. So hence it is a Roman figure 1 as well as your Roman figure 2. Then we are still in question 1, which is your rural and your settlement questions. So there you refer to the sketch below on classification of settlement. Remember, settlements are classified according to their functions. So you choose the correct term From those given in the bracket, remember you need to choose a term that will make a statement to be correct. So our 1.2.1, the settlements are ranked according, is it a function or population? So we are looking at the ranking of the settlement. Then number 2, a metropolis or conurbation is made up of cities with independent towns. In the settlement hierarchy, which one is it, a metropolis or is it a conurbation? Then your third question, a village or a town is the smallest urban settlement. Then your 1.2.4, a hamlet or a village has a mixture of both rural and your urban settlement or your function. So is it a hamlet or is it a village that has a mixture of both rural as well as your urban function? So you've got 4 questions at the moment. I'm going to give you 4 minutes. It's 1 minute per question. Read the statement, then you choose the correct term that will make a statement to be correct. And then after 4 minutes, we will proceed to the next questions. Looking there at our next question, we have your question 1.2.5 up to 1.2.7. So here we are talking about the range. The range of a town or a city will be greater. Then your 1.2.6, the conurbation or the metropolis has a greater number of functions as well as the size. The greater number of functions as well as the size. Is that a conurbation or is that a metropolis? Then your number 1.2.7, as the size of a settlement increases, the number of this type of a settlement will, is it increase or decrease? So here you are guided by the arrows. So pay attention to these arrows so that you can be able to answer your 1.2.7. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes, and then after 3 minutes, we will start with our corrections. Right? So as we are doing our corrections, make sure that you are also marking your work so that you can see which questions you got it correct and which one you got it incorrect. So your 1.2.1, the settlement are ranked according to the function. Remember, it's the functions that will determine the type of a settlement and not a population. Then your 1.2.2, a metropolis or a conurbation is made up of cities with independent towns. We are looking at your metropolis because an area or an independent town can become a metro because it is a city that is made up of these independent towns. Then your 1.2.3, a village or town is the smallest urban settlement. So remember, you need to understand that from the farmstead, hamlet, as well as the village, these, they represent your rural settlement. Then from the urban settlement, we start with the town. So the village or the town is the smallest urban settlement. The correct answer is town. Then your 1.2.4, a hamlet or a village has a mixture of both rural and urban function. Remember, we are looking at the village. Remember, in the village, you can still get a school that you can still get in the urban settlement. You can still get a clinic that you can still get in the urban settlement. You can also get a supermarket that you can also get at the urban settlement. So therefore, there is that mixture between the rural as well as the urban function. Then your 1.2.5, the range of a town or city will be greater. So a range of a city. Remember, the town is the smallest settlement in the urban area. So therefore, there's only few services. So when it comes to the city, it has a wider range because you will get more services in the city. Then your 1.2.6, the conurbation metropolis has a greater number of functions as well as size. So greater number of function and size. We are looking in terms of the hierarchy. You can see that the conurbation is higher than your metropolis, so therefore your conurbation becomes an answer. Then your 1.2.7, as the size of a settlement increases, the number of this type of a settlement will decrease. Remember, I said you are guided by these arrows. So the number of functions as well as the size of a settlement increase in range, and then decrease in the number of function and size of a settlement as well as decrease in rates. So the size of the settlement increases, the number of this type of settlement will decrease. Then we're looking at our question 2. In our question 2, remember you should expect any questions from economic geography. So likewise, we start with our instructions. It says refer to the infographic below on sugarcane farming. You will remember that sugarcane farming is one of the topics that will be examined this year. So you are given an extract, which is sugarcane farming. You are also given the map where you will find the sugarcane farming. We are also given the key there in that map. There is sugarcane, where you will find the sugarcane as well as the sugar mills. Remember, the sugar mills becomes an industry, and then your rural areas. Then we also get given a fact as well as the figures about South Africa's sugar industry. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go through the resources in terms of the infographic. Start by reading the extract and then analyze what you see in the map as well as what you see in the facts. So after 5 minutes, we will then be able to see the questions. Right? Looking there at the questions that we are given, as you said, refer to the infographic below on sugarcane farming. So your 2.1.1, what is the percentage? What is the percentage decrease in number of sugarcane farmers in the last 2 decades? So again, we are looking at the percentage decrease in the number of sugarcane farmers. The answer, you get it from the infographic. Then secondly, you identify the 2 provinces on the map where sugarcane can be farmed. Then number 3, you state 2 physical factors. So you state 2 physical factors. Remember again, it is important to take note what factor you're supposed to answer based on. So you state 2 physical factors that promote sugarcane farming in these provinces that you have identified in question 2.1 in question 2.1.2. So your 2 times 1, as it says, state 2 of the physical factors. It means one factor will give you 1 mark and another factor will give you 1 mark. Should it be you only wrote 1 factor, it means you only going to get 1 answer, so or 1 mark. So therefore, now that we have seen the questions, only these 3 questions, let us also go back to the infographic, because now we want to check that decrease in percentage. We want to check those provinces and as well as the that question. So again, I'm going to give you another 5 minutes to go through the resources, and then now that we have seen the question, as you are going through the resources for the second time, you now are paying attention on which answers are you looking for, so that as soon as you see the answer, you just underline the answer and then you make a mark if it's 2.1.1 or 2.1.2 or 2.1.3. So 5 minutes starts now. Now that we have gone through the extract for the second time or the resources or infographic for the second time, you will now be able to answer the questions. Remember, the first question, we are looking at that percentage decrease, and then number 2, you need to identify those 2 provinces, and then you state the physical factor that promotes the sugarcane in these provinces you have answered in the above question. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes to answer these questions, and then after 4 minutes, we will be able to go through the solutions. Right, grade 12, looking at our first question, your 2.1.1, what is the percentage decrease in the number of sugarcane farmers in the last 2 decades? You will see that in the extract, they did indicate that the decrease percentage is 60%. Then 2.1.2, identify the 2 provinces on the map where sugarcane can be farmed. KwaZulu-Natal as well as the Mpumalanga. Remember, you are using the key there where there is sugarcane on which provinces. Then your 2.1.2, you state 0.3. You state 2 physical factors that promote sugarcane farming in these provinces. Number 1, these provinces, they have the high rainfall, so it means the water will not be a problem in that area. So therefore, it is a physical factor because it's going to promote the sugarcane. Then secondly, we're looking at the fertile soil. The fertile soil, again, is a physical factor that will promote the sugarcane in these provinces. Then we're looking at our second question. Our second question is still on the economic geography. So refer to the cartoon and the extract below on informal trading. So in defense of South Africa's informal economy, a shadow economy. So again, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go through the extract as well as the cartoon, and then after 5 minutes we're going to see what questions do we have. After seeing the questions, we then go back again to the resources that we are given. This practice, you should also do it even during the exam. Go through the resource, then check the questions, and then come back to the resources again. So your 5 minutes to go through your cartoon as well as your extract starts now. So let us see what questions do we have as we are referring to the cartoon as well as the extract. The first question, you give another name for the informal sector from the extract. So not just another name, but you should look at the one that has been mentioned in the extract. So as you are giving another name. Then 2.2.2, why does the trader in the cartoon not have a permit? We are also looking at the mark allocation, which is 1 times 1. 1 mark, one answer that will give you 1 mark. Then 2.2.3, quote 1 consequence from the extract for the trader who does not have a permit. So what happened? You need to quote from the extract. What consequence do they have? So now that we have seen the questions, let us go back again to our cartoon as well as our extract. So again, I'm going to give you another 5 minutes. So in that 5 minutes now, you are going through the extract as well as the cartoon to identify these answers that you're supposed to refer to from these resources that you are given. So your 5 minutes start now, and then after that 5 minutes, we will be able to now answer this question, right? We're looking there at our question 2.2.1 up to question 2.2.3. It's 3 questions. I'm going to give you 3 minutes, and then after 3 minutes, we will be able to proceed to our solutions. Looking at our solutions, the first question there, you are supposed to give another name for the informal sector from the extract. Remember, there are so many names, the alternative name for the informal sector, but now the question was specific that you need to give according to the extract. So according to the extract, they have mentioned that it is also a shadow economy. So hence our answer is shadow economy. Then your 2.2.2, why does the trader in the cartoon not have a permit? So she cannot afford it. That is why she doesn't have a permit. As you can see there in the picture, that she does not afford it. Then your 2.2.3, you quote one consequence from the extract for the trader who does not have a permit. So what happens? There are regular rates, and also the goods are being seized or the fines are issued. So these are the consequences for the trader who does not have a permit. Anytime he or she can lose his or her stock, anytime he or she can be issued with a fine that he or she is supposed to pay again. Remember, he is saying he does not have a permit because he cannot afford it. But now there is a consequence of not having that permit, because you are also liable to lose your goods and also to pay the fine. Then we're looking at our question 3, which is our map work. So our map work is taken from the map of Verulam. So again, the examiner will give you the map of South Africa, and they will locate the area that is in question. As you can see, this is the province, which is in KwaZulu-Natal, and this is the location of the map of Verulam that we'll be working on. So even if it's your first time seeing this area, but now you will realize that on which province is this area located. Then furthermore, beside the map, you are also given the general information on that area, starting with the coordinates and what type of an area, where is it located. So again, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to read through the general information, and then after 5 minutes, we will begin with our questions. Right? Looking there at our first question, you will refer to the topographic map and on the orthophoto map. Remember, these are the 2 sets of maps that we are working on or that we are using in grade 12. So the question, the first one, 3.1.1, the contour interval of what of the orthophoto map? Is it a 5 meter or is it a 20 meter? So you need to choose from the brackets the correct answer. Then 3.1.2, which vertical exaggeration will give the most detailed indication of the landscape on a cross section? So we're talking about the vertical exaggeration. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and then after 2 minutes, we will proceed to the solutions. Right? Looking there at our solution, the contour interval of the orthophoto map. Remember the contour interval, we're talking about the space between the contour lines. So on the orthophoto map, it's 5 meters. Remember, it is also written at the end of the map, should it happen that you forgot which one is 20 meters and which one is 5 meters. So the contour interval of the topographic map is 20 meters. Then on the orthophoto, it's 5 meters. Then Which vertical exaggeration will give the most detailed indication of the landscape on a cross section? From the option that you are given, the 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, these are not the most detailed. Remember, the vertical exaggeration, we want to know how many times have that area been exaggerated. So if the area has been exaggerated more times, it will be more detailed in terms of the indication of this landform. So 20 times will be the one that will have the most detailed indication. Then our question 3.1.3, complete the grid references or coordinates of spot height 114 in block C3. So here is the spot height 114 in block C3. On the topographic map, write down only the information that is not included in the question. So you will know by now that in South Africa, we start with the south direction followed by the east direction. So remember, the maps that you are using now, it comes with a direction so that you are not confused which one is the south direction and which one is the east direction. So the instruction said, write down only the information that is not included. So at A, what is not included is the degree. Then at B, you are given a degree. What is not included are the minutes as well as the seconds. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to work on this grid reference or coordinates, and then after 3 minutes, we will be able to discuss the solution. Right? Looking there at our solution, remember you were writing only the ones that are missing. So at A, you were supposed to write a degree, which is a 29 degree. So where do we get the 29 degree? Remember, the maps comes with the degree. The degrees, they do not change, irregardless of which feature is on which block. So the 29, because we start with the south direction, so it's this 29. Then secondly, that 29, we now move at B, which is the east direction. In the east direction, remember we said the degrees, they do not change. So 31 degrees for the east direction, which is this one. Then our feature is in block C3. So what happens? You start with the minutes in block C1, which is 2. Remember, for the minutes, you add 1 to the next block, another 1 to the next block, another 1, because 60 seconds is equal to 1 minute. So if we are starting with 2 minutes in number 1, which means in block C2, we will have 3 minutes, then in block C3, we will have 4 minutes. So here is that 4 minutes. So it does not have a range because you can never miss adding 1, 1, and 1. Then what happens when you are looking for the seconds? That's where now you're gonna have the range, because what happened is in finding the seconds, you first locate where is your feature and where is your feature. Remember, you do this with the ruler so that you can be accurate as possible. So what happened is, you then, using the ruler in the center, you divide in the center, that will be your 10 seconds. Then again measure another half, that will be your 15 seconds. And then you measure another half, that will be your 45 seconds. Then at the end of the block, that will be your 60 seconds. Remember, same thing applies with the south direction as well. So we are looking for the seconds. So now you simply locate, it is sitting at 45. So it means our seconds is 45. So remember, because our measurement will never be the same, so in order for you to be at the range, you're supposed to get between 45 up until 49 seconds. Then you are awarded a marks. Then, to moving right along with our question, our next question, you need to calculate the average gradient. You are calculating the average gradient between F and G. So here is our F and here is our G. So in that calculation, use the following information. Vertical interval, which is the VI, it's 119 meters minus 80 meters, which is 39 meters. Then our formula of calculating the gradient is vertical interval, which is the VI, over horizontal equivalent, which is the HE. So what happened is your vertical interval is the height, and the examiner already did it for you. Then your horizontal equivalent, remember, it is your distance. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to work on this calculation, and then after 5 minutes we will be able to proceed to the solution. Right? Looking there at our solution, boys and girls, remember you were already given the information that vertical interval is equal to 39 meters. So what happened is there is no need to recalculate it again, because even if you recalculate, you will not be awarded marks. So what happened is you need your horizontal equivalent, which is your HE, or which is your distance. So what happens? You need to measure the distance between your F and between your G using your centimeters and 30 centimeter ruler. So you will get 4.5 centimeter. So there is a range between 4.4 to 4.6. It means if you got 4.4, you are still correct, 4.5, you are still correct, and 4.6, you are still correct. So what happened is we measure with centimeter, and then we need to convert it either in the meters or in kilometer. So when we are calculating the gradient is always calculated in meters. So now we need to convert this centimeter into meters. So what scale are we using? We are using 500. Why 500? Because we are using a topographic map, and the scale of the topographic map is 1:50,000. You will remember in grade 9 and 10, we have learned about converting of the scale. How did we arrive to this 500? So your 4.5 times 500 will give you 2,250 meters, because we were converting into the meters. So remember, because we have a range, if you got 4.4, you'll get 2,200. If you got 4.6, you get 2,300. Then the next step is for you to make a correct substitution. The vertical interval, you were already given that it is 39 meters. Then over your horizontal equivalent, we have calculated that it is 2,250 meters. For that correct substitution, even if your answers were wrong, but if you use those wrong answers to substitute in correctly, so you will be awarded marks. So 39 for vertical interval meter over 2,250 for the horizontal equivalent, which is your distance. Then what happens? You then divide both sides with your vertical interval, which is your 39 and over your 39. Then you don't put this in as a fraction in your calculator, because you're going to get an incorrect answer, but you do it manually. Your 39 divided by 39 will give you 1 over. Then 2,250 divided by 39 will give you 57,69. Remember this step, it does not have marks, but it will take you to a ratio scale because gradient is supposed to be on a ratio scale. Then, therefore, 1:2, that 57,69. Hence, you get that answer. Remember again, there is a range because our measurement, it was from 4,4 up until 4,6. Then we're looking at our summary. In our summary, we have looked into the exemplar questions on your rural as well as your urban settlement. Then secondly, we have looked into the questions based on your economic geography. And then lastly, we have looked into some map work questions. So to give you the preview of our next lesson, we will still be focusing on the final exam revision, which is paper 2. We're going to try and come up with another topics that were not touched today so that we can be familiar, and also to make sure that we try to revise as more topics as possible. So we have came to an end of our lesson today. Hopefully you have enjoyed the lesson, but most of all, I hope you have learned. Thank you and stay tuned for the next lesson.